Hi dear Calju students, I'm really happy to meet you for our last video and last topic of this module, cross-cutting issues. And it's for me a really perfect location for this topic to be at the end. It's I think it's like it should be like the spine of our humanitarian aid, and it's the strengthening or the building of local capacity, whether it's at institutional level or community level. 20 years back, and I refer to 20 years back because of course I'm sharing with you what is my experience, what is what have been my examples of interventions and my observations during these 23 years that I've been involved in humanitarian aid. But at the same time, I refer these 20 years because these 20 last years have been really instrumental in humanitarian aid, in terms of there's been lots of growth, there's been lots of change, and I like to refer to when it was not the case, because then you can see where we're coming from, and I think somehow it can give us some perspective on where to head, or also appreciate where we are. And sometimes when we understand the why, it gives more clarity on what we are expected to do or not. So let me share with you where this come from, this strengthening of local capacities in humanitarian aid. Because 20 years back, and that is in a few years back also, there may be some context where still, I think there's no more anymore humanitarian operations of this kind, but 20 years back it was really an imported product, and then it's finished and you go back home. You know, that was the vision. The development programs were those that developed, build capacity. Humanitarian aid was not expected to do that. It was emergency response. No, it was fast. And it was so fast, we thought that we had no time to disaggregate data by gender or age. We thought we had no time for checking if there were persons with disabilities in the area and what kind of disabilities. It was so fast that there was no time to build capacities. Yeah, so this has changed a lot. And I tell you why, or why I think it is. There was also so it was all this perspective that humanitarian aid is an imported stuff, and we do the human resources and the material resources as all outside, and then we go in, we do the good job, and we finished. So there was this assumption that there was not the capacity in country to go that fast and to know how it goes. Maybe there's part of truth in that. There was, I think, first a perspective and that was different, but it's true that in many of the countries there was not this habit of humanitarian aid. There was no training on humanitarian aid. There were no master in humanitarian aid like the one you're doing. Then the crises were not that cyclical like they are today. To nowadays, because unfortunately, or for example, climate change, we have crises all the time. Then we integrated also the dimension of preparedness, disaster risk reduction, link between humanitarian aid and development, and exit strategy. So yes, 20 years back, the donors were already asking to develop exit strategy, but let us be honest, it was like, put something. And actually, until the donors put so much pressure to understand what is your exit strategy, and then the link was made between the harm that humanitarian aid could do if we were to withdraw from a country without any exit strategy, without any constructive and relevant link between humanitarian aid and development programs. And there's been a lot of pressure and imposition by the donors on this. I think coming also from, and that's the second point where I think it comes from. I mean, donors had to pay huge amounts for having these imported teams in and out. and it was repeating, and especially if you don't leave capacity behind, so you have to reinvent the same wheel all the time. It's a lot of money. So I think from a very practical point of view, and at the same time, I mean, like more of the policy side of the humanitarian aid and everything evolved. We were starting to speak about rights. We were starting to speak about cooperation, South-South, also in humanitarian aid. We were starting to also to get closer in humanitarian aid and development. Because I can tell you, 20, not that far back, 20 years back, I worked in some organizations with both development programs and humanitarian aid programs. We would not talk to each other. We needed to create special session, with facilitator and everything to understand each other. You can't imagine what were the prejudices, the limiting belief, or the belief we had about each other. Like the development people would see the emergency response people like wild people who had no clue about anything and who were so gross and would come, give their stuff, destroy everything in terms of development gains, instead with no cultural understanding. And then the emergency people would think about development people that they're so lazy and working 10 years for 5 beneficiaries and spending the money we don't know how. I mean, it was this kind of belief. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. So it was really like that, and there was no way people could see what was the link. So because humanitarian aid was also growing, and development started noticing that crisis impacts development gains. That disaster risk reduction and preparedness should be part of development too. And then humanitarian aid and started to understand that development people and projects had understanding about the context, about the community, about gender dynamics, about all the social dynamics, everything that were very precious for quality humanitarian aid. And what I think, the imposition by donors of having an exit strategy, a real one, a good one, establishing the link between humanitarian aid. At the beginning, I remember in ECHO proposals, it was the link between humanitarian emergency, rehabilitation and development. Then it has become, in the recent years, the nexus. No? And so this has evolved in this mix of the humanitarian agenda at global level, getting more elaborated and with a better vision, less polarized, but more inclusive. This also, is motivated by the globalization process. 20 years back, the world was not like that, so global, no? So a lot has happened. Then the donors obliged us to build the capacities in the communities, in the institutions, in the country. And that was part of the exit strategy. How can I ensure that not only the project is going to continue, that people are going to be able to replace the tools and the materials that would break or whatever, but also how would they continue in this kind of project? And so we had to train them and everything. And then they started also to cut budget on expat people. Say, no, cannot be. Or that percentage of your human resources be expat only. Local people, national people. There will be money for training. There's this and that. So this made a huge difference. And so that's why the building of capacities now is so essential, especially now that we have integrated also disaster risk reduction, recovery, build back better, things that you don't do on a short time. It's things that you include in your development strategies, in your development cycle, that you work all year long on. And frankly, I think there's nothing more valuable than, and that makes you feel more proud of doing what you do, that when you leave a country, you've been able to be an instrument for people, maybe to bring them some experiences from other countries, or to be maybe this pivot, this channel here in the middle, little neutral. You're not from the country, you're not from here, you're from there. So being this instrument where everyone, without the usual kind of distances or prejudices or challenges, but they still everyone could work. So you've been able to create this space and this platform where people gather around the same objective, and helping them to reconnect with all of their wisdom, their capacities. You know what I see in many countries is, especially countries with many crises or so-called developing countries, it's a lot of lack of faith in who they are, of confidence, of self-esteem as a country, of what they're able to do. And isn't it beautiful, the idea that when you leave, or the experience of when you leave, to have people standing higher, being proud of who they are and what they do, and having sparkles in their eyes about this regained self-esteem as an individual, as an organization, as an institution, as a country. And that's beautiful. So let us do what we do with this idea of bringing maybe some structure, some experience from outside, some habit of managing programs at these scales, and being an instrument for them to learn to build trust in themselves, and to do it by themselves, and to trust they can do it. And not that it's not your project and your leadership and your this. It's what we have done as a team. And having been the instrument of that is the most rewarding. So yeah, definitely, I would say the objective of our aid, of course, if we remove from saving life and protecting life, that's the first, but really the essence, and how we move towards saving and protecting lives is, how do I make that these people save and protect the lives of their people? How do I become an instrument at their service? And I don't do what I do for my glory, but for the glory of a country. So be that instrument, building capacities at community, at institutional level. Live, L-I-V-E, and leave, L-E-A-V-E, this legacy. That's I think the most precious for all of them that you can leave. Thank you.